Hello, this is Margaret at the University of Sewing, and I want to show you a extremely simple but wonderfully effective way to make a quilt back. So what we've got right here is we've got 5 yards of fabric, and I have cut it into 2 pieces, 2.5 yards long. So this is one piece 2.5 yards long. This is another piece 2.5 yards long. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these 2 pieces of fabric together, and I am going to sew along my selvage edge. I'm going to sew right along here, and I'm going to do that on both selvage edges. So I'm going to sew here. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance so my selvage doesn't show at all. And I'll do that on the other side. So we're going to sew along this 2.5 yard length all the way up to the top. And I'm going to start at this, if I start down at this side with this one, I'm going to start at the same place over there. So I'm not going to sew up one and then come down the other. Don't do it that way. Take my word for it. This will make this much less aggravating if what you do is you take and sew from, just pick one area. I'm going to call this my top, and start from the top, sew down to the bottom, start from the top, sew down to the bottom. And we will be back in just a minute with this all sewn, and I will show you how cool this system is to create a wonderful quilt back out of 2.5 yard pieces of 45 inch wide fabric, so that if you're not wanting to go and get 108 inch wide piece of fabric, or perhaps you don't want, maybe you don't need it that wide, and maybe you want to use up some of the fabric in your stash, or there might be a situation where the fabric you want to use for your back is not available in 108 inch wide. This is your solution. So we'll be back in just a minute to show you what's next. Hi, I'm back. So this is Margaret, University of Sewing, and we are talking about how to make a backing for your quilt using 45 inch wide fabric. And so you know this as well as I do. It might be 42 inches wide, it might be 44 inches wide, but we're going to take 2 pieces 2.5 yards long each. So basically, if you go to the store, get them to cut you 2.5 yards twice, it's 5 yards. And this is what we did with it. So we've got 2 pieces. We put them together. I decided to start at the top and sew down. And what I've got here is, you know what? I've got the bottom here, not the top, because I wanted to show you something. Okay, we're gonna flip this around here so I can show it to you. I told you before, what I want you to do is I want you to start at the top and move down. So what it looks like on these 2 ends is, see, everything is nicely even. And now it's a tube. So Dave asked me about this. He said, well, how's it going to be a back? It's going to be a tube. Yes, it's going to be a tube right now. See, I sewed the 2 pieces together on the selvage edges. So now we have a tube. So what I did is I pressed my seam allowances to one side. So when I went over to the iron, I pressed, and you can see what I did. See how they're pressed to one side? So the other thing I did is, one of my pieces, I pressed out my center crease. No, I didn't pre-wash this fabric. You can pre-wash it if you want to. If you feel more comfortable pre-washing it, go ahead. I was pretty comfortable. This was a batik. I don't think it's going to shrink on me, so I didn't bother doing that. But what I did with it is, on the one side, this side, I went ahead and pressed out my crease. There's no crease here. On this side, I left my crease in there, and see the crease right there? You might also be able to see it here. See the crease? So I left it in there for a reason. The reason that I thought would just make this so much easier is that, one, I could turn this inside out. I can refold it on that crease, and then I can just cut my crease off. Or the other thing you can do is you could just take your scissors and follow your crease, and you can cut it like this. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with that and you'd rather use your rotary cutter, it's really simple. All you have to do is turn the whole thing inside out, and now what I've got is I've got a seam on that side, a seam on this side, and one side, my crease is coming back really easily for me. And so, you know, this is when having a big table is really handy. And if you live close to the University of Sewing, remember, we do open sewing time. And you can come in and use this big table when we have an open sew. All right, look at that. It's folding nice and neat for me. So what I can do is I can lay this. Now, I need to be careful. The last thing I want to do after I did all this work is to end up with a piece of fabric under here and cut off the wrong thing. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not cut. And see what I did with my hand, running it all along there. So this table's big enough for this. You probably don't have a table this big, but you can do it in sections. So again, I make sure there's nothing under it. All I'm going to do is come along here and cut off. Yep. I'm going to just cut off that crease. So, and that is going to make this really, really fast. So either way will work. Your scissors, I showed you how to do that. Or come up here with your rotary cutter. And yes, of course, you can use a ruler if you feel more comfortable with that. But all I'm doing is just cutting this tiny little piece off of there. It's my fold. I'm just cutting off my fold. There's my back now. Now, what's really cool about this is with the batik, you won't ever see the seams. But if Dave comes over here really close, he can show you the seams. And because I already pressed them, I don't have to go back and do anything. And now I have a piece of fabric that is twice the width of my 44, 45 inch wide. So let's go ahead and let's find out if we can see how wide this is. So there's 36. There is 72. And this is now 72, 82, 84, 85 inches, guys. So it's 85 inches wide. And then it's my 2.5 yards. So that is, let's see, that is going to be, so 72 and 18. So this is 90 inches by 85 inches. So I've got a really big piece of fabric right here that I can use whatever direction is going to work for my project. Most of the time our quilts are longer than they are wide, so it'll probably just go on exactly like how I have it, so these seams will be vertical. But I obviously could still use it the other way around if I wanted to. But the point is, you have got all this fabric at home that you're not sure what you're going to do with. This might be a good way for you to make some backs. And you could do this. I remember I told you I was going to go away and sew it. You didn't want to watch me sew it and then just press it. All I did was sew 2 seams and then press the seams. So all of that was very, very simple. But if you have any questions, if something I did here did not make sense, please, please, please ask me, because I want you to have this really cool, very simple process to use to go ahead and make. You can do this really creatively if you wanted to. You could strip a whole bunch of fabric together and then sew on the seams on either side, and do something really creative. I've seen it where Lori, one of our employees, she's taken and put something in the center here and then put her fabric beside it. So there's a bunch of ways to do this that would use up a lot of those extra fabrics you've been wondering what you're going to do with. And this is a great way to use that extra fabric up and make up backs for charity quilts, for yourself. And you know, sometimes we just can't find the fabric we want in a 108-inch wide or 120-inch wide fabric. So this is a great solution. I hope that helps you out, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you at the University of Sewing.